Welcome to Mostly AI. I'm Derek Kane. A quick note, outside of my role as host, this podcast is entirely AI generated. Let's get into it.
You got 10 signups this week. 10 real people found your product, read their landing page, decided it was worth their email address, and signed up. And then, nothing. 0 sessions, 0 clicks past the welcome screen. The dashboard just sits there, quiet as a held breath. If you felt that silence, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And today, we're going to name it. And more importantly, we're going to close it. Welcome to LaunchWave. I'm Enceladus, and with me today is Aoede, a practitioner who has watched this pattern unfold across dozens of early-stage launches. Aoede, welcome.
Thank you. And I want to say right at the start, if you're a founder sitting with that silence right now, you are not alone and you are not failing. You are standing at a very specific, very nameable threshold. And once you can see it clearly, you can cross it.
So let's name it. What is the activation gap exactly? Because I want to be careful here. Activation is one of those words that gets thrown around in growth circles until it loses all its weight. What does it actually mean?
Right, so let's strip it down. Activation, in plain language, is the moment a new user first gets real value from your product. Not just logs in, not just pokes around, actually feels something shift. Oh, this does what it promised. That moment. The gap is the distance between signing up and reaching that moment. And for a lot of early-stage SaaS products, that distance is enormous. Or worse, it's never crossed at all.
So it's not a retention problem. It's not a churn problem.
Exactly. Founders often come to me worried about churn, and I have to gently redirect them. You can't churn someone who never arrived. The activation gap is what happens before retention even becomes a question. It's the chasm between I signed up and I got it. And here's what makes it so painful. It looks like a product problem. The numbers say nobody's using the product. So founders go rebuild features, redesign the UI, add a tutorial, and the gap stays exactly the same.
Because it's not a product problem.
It's a launch problem, almost always. The gap opens before the user ever touches the product. It opens in the decisions you made about who you targeted, what you promised them, and what you designed their first 60 seconds to feel like. Those 3 decisions, made at launch, determine whether someone crosses the threshold or quietly disappears.
Okay, so walk me through those 3 decisions, because I think this is where founders need to hear something they might not want to hear.
The first one is ICP targeting, your ideal customer profile. When you launch, there's a temptation to cast wide. You want signups, you want the number to go up. So you write copy that appeals to everyone who might possibly be interested. And you get signups, but you get the curious, not the committed. Someone who signs up because your headline was clever is not the same as someone who signs up because they have a burning problem your product solves today. The curious browse, the committed use. And if your launch targeting was too broad, your dashboard will be full of curious people who have already moved on.
That's a hard one to hear because broad targeting feels like momentum. It feels like traction.
It feels like traction. It is not traction. Traction is when the right person uses the product and comes back. Everything else is noise that looks like signal. The second failure mode is the messaging gap, and this one is subtle. Your landing page makes a promise. Your onboarding has to keep it. When those 2 things are misaligned, the user arrives expecting one experience and gets another. Maybe your headline says, launch your product in a day, but the onboarding asks them to configure integrations, set up a workspace, invite a team. The promise was speed. The experience is friction. That dissonance is enough to make someone close the tab and never return.
So the message sets an expectation and the product has to honor it immediately.
Immediately, in the first session. You have maybe 3 minutes, maybe less, before someone decides whether this is worth their continued attention. And the third failure mode is the one I see most often, and it's the most heartbreaking, skipping the value moment. The first session never reaches the point where the user actually feels the product working. They see the interface, they maybe fill out a form, but they never hit the moment where something clicks, where the product does the thing it was built to do, and the user feels it. That moment, I call it the aha, is not an accident. It has to be designed. It has to be the destination of the entire onboarding flow, and most early-stage products don't design for it at all.
They design for setup, not for revelation.
Beautifully put. Setup is necessary. Revelation is what makes someone come back.
So this is where LaunchWave comes in. And I want to talk about this honestly, because I think there's a real distinction between fixing the gap after it opens and closing it before it ever does. What does that look like in practice?
Most tools founders reach for are post-gap tools, analytics dashboards that tell you nobody activated, email sequences that try to re-engage people who already left, support docs that explain features nobody reached. These are all valuable, but they're downstream of the problem. LaunchWave is built for what happens between the sign-up and the first session. It's the infrastructure for that critical window.
So concretely, what does that mean for a founder using the platform?
It means you're thinking about 3 things before you launch, not after. First, who are you actually targeting, and does your launch sequence filter for the committed rather than just the curious? LaunchWave helps you build that targeting clarity into your launch flow, so the people who sign up are the people who have the problem your product solves. Second, is your messaging consistent from the first ad or post all the way to the first screen they see inside the product? That thread has to be unbroken. LaunchWave gives you the scaffolding to audit that thread before you go live. And third, and this is the one I love most, it helps you design the value moment. You map out what is the one thing a new user needs to experience in their first session to feel the product working, and then you build the onboarding backward from that moment, not forward from the sign-up form.
Backward from the aha. That's such a different way to think about it.
It changes everything, because when you design backward from the value moment, every step in your onboarding has a purpose. Every screen is either moving the user toward that moment or it's in the way, and you start cutting ruthlessly because you realize how much of what you've built is setup theater. It looks like onboarding, but it's actually just delay.
And the founders who do this work before launch, what do they see?
They see activation, real activation. Users who come back on day 2, day 3, users who tell other people. The gap doesn't close by accident. It closes because someone made a deliberate decision before launch to design for the moment when a stranger becomes a believer.
I want to end with something practical. If there's a founder listening right now who just checked their dashboard and saw 0 activity, activation rate at 0, what's the one thing you tell them?
Don't rebuild the product, not yet. Before you touch a single line of code, go talk to one of the people who signed up and didn't use it, just one. Ask them what they expected when they signed up. Ask them what they saw when they got inside. The distance between those 2 answers, that's your gap. That's the exact shape of it. And once you can see the shape, you can close it. It's almost never what you think it is. It's almost never a missing feature. It's almost always a broken thread between the promise and the experience.
The promise and the experience. That's the whole thing, isn't it?
That's the whole thing. And the beautiful part, the part that keeps me doing this work, is that the gap is always closable. It's not a verdict on your idea. It's a signal about your launch. And signals can be read. Patterns can be changed. You built something real. Now let's make sure the right people can actually feel it.
Aoede, this has been one of those conversations that gives founders language for something they've been feeling but couldn't name. Thank you for bringing that clarity today.
It's always a privilege. Go close the gap.
And if you're ready to close yours before your next launch, not after, find out how LaunchWave helps founders design for activation from day 1. Visit us at cleardataai.ai. We'll see you in the next wave.
You've been listening to Mostly AI, a podcast built with AI-generated content, production, and audio elements. Thanks for being here. Until next time.